everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really grateful I have this emotional support podium, kind of a place to rest my shaky hands. So most of this talk I'm going to read because I do a little better with that. Otherwise, I'll ramble and I won't say all the things that I really want to tell you. Something that has changed in my work over the last few years is that I have gradually let go of how much control I exert over the painting as it evolves. An idea comes to me, I do a lot of sketching and sometimes make a small miniature acrylic painting, like a study, to work out the general composition and the structure. And then after that, I take an intuitive approach. I show up with the experience, the muscle memory, the knowledge of the materials and the tools that I've acquired over the years, and I'm open and I try not to overthink, and then I just begin. I make a move, and then that move leads to another move, and then that leads to another move, and then it leads to a bigger conversation and a flow. And soon it feels like I've set things into motion, and my job is to keep listening, to stay open, and to do the work. I've found that by relinquishing some control, I'm extending an invitation to the creative spirit, to chance, to my own imagination, to the divine, whatever you want to call whatever that is. But in doing so, the work becomes less of an extension of me or my identity or even my self-worth, and it instead becomes something that I witnessed, that I got to be a part of, but that is beyond me. So I thought that it would be fun to model that kind of collaboration with the unknown in the framework of giving this talk. So I've prepared this talk and I'm here to deliver it. But I've decided to leave the order of all the different things that I want to tell you up to fate. So in this little bucket, I have all the things, all the sections of my talk that I want to tell you. And I'm going to let you guys pick, and that's how this is all going to go down. So I'm prepared. I'm really open. I'm trusting that maybe by letting go over some of the control of how this talk goes, all of the connections that I'm really hoping to make will be richer, more meaningful, funnier than if I presented this talk to you in an order that was logical or tightly controlled. And also this could end up being really confusing and a disaster, but no risk, no reward. And I will say that on Monday I was freaking out and I was like, I don't think it's a good idea. I think I just want tight control. I was talking to Davey, my husband over there. And he was like, no, you just do it. So here I am just doing it. So, Jen, I'm going to let this live over here. Okay, so I don't have to keep walking back and forth. All right. Martyrs. Okay. It's an interesting place to start. Okay, so hold on, let me find my notes. This is the one thing. There's going to be a little bit of a rigmarole involved.
Worth it.
Yeah. Okay, so I've been interested in historic Christian martyr paintings for a while, especially Saint Agatha, who you see here. Who had her breasts cut off, and these paintings of her, she's like offering them up to God. These paintings are really strange and scary, but also beautifully painted and captivating. So this series that I'm working on right now, and that these two pieces are a part of, are definitely influenced by these Christian martyr paintings. This one I saw in person at the Flemish Primitives Museum in Bruges, and it is so beautiful, but it's so intense. I mean, look, his leg is getting flayed. Isn't that awful? Just to show you some other paintings that are in this series that kind of go along with this, the figures in these paintings endure strange ordeals and trials, perhaps in the midst of rites and ceremonies, perhaps being tested by judges unseen. And I want the figures to have a mythical, almost goddess-like quality, but I also want them to seem vulnerable. So the Christian martyrs are always depicted as like completely serene, as if they're unaware of the pain. But I want the viewers of my work to be able to recognize the suffering in my figures. But I'm not interested in just depicting suffering. I'm more interested in depicting the strangeness of life. That includes the suffering, the sublime, the mundane, the transcendent, all at once, because I feel like that is a more genuine representation of human experience. And I want to, so this painting is a little different than the others. It's called Cosmos. And you can see here a bell jar reference, which we will return to at some point, unknown point, I don't know. And so I really felt compelled to make this one, even though it was a little different. It didn't have like this central figure, and also the flowers are the kind of figurative element. But then recently, I've been developing this idea. This is a sketch, and this is what kind of the sketches this is after mini sketches, and this is kind of where I landed. But it's going to be like this farmer or gardener figure, and she's going to be kind of watering these baby flowers with her breast milk, and that's like I'm about to make this painting, so this is kind of in the works. But I feel like it's directly related to this one, so it's kind of all coming together in that way. I also wanted to show you a sculptural piece that is in process, and I did the main part of it, and this is for a show at University of Central Florida in January. And so these are 4 feet tall by 3 feet wide, and they're hollow. And this idea was inspired by, I can't think of her name, Ring the Living Bell. You know? Melanie. Thank you. So I heard that song by Melanie, Ring the Living Bell, and it was just like, oh my gosh. And I wanted to make these giant breast bells. So these, and I'm sorry that I have to describe this idea to you and I can't show it to you, but maybe one day. They're going to be suspended theoretically from the ceiling. And there's going to be this like fabric element of milk coming down. And inside of these bells will be wind chimes, like really beautifully tuned wind chimes. And people will be able to ring them. So, but breastfeeding has been a big part of my life for the last 7 years, with a 1 year break in there, and it continues to be a part of my life. And so it's really hard for me to avoid lactation as a metaphor because it's such a good one. So yeah, there's a lot of breast in my work, and they often resemble the shape of breasts on lactating animals, like a cow or a pig or a dog. And this she-wolf of Rome has been, for the last decade, even before I was a mother, like such a powerful image for me that I always keep coming back to. Okay, I'm ready for the next section. Whoever wants to draw it for me. Birth. All right. Let's see. Okay, I just have this image. Let me find this. Okay, so when Davy and I got to the point where we were feeling ready to have kids, I was already very interested in natural birth and had been for a while. What drew me to natural birth was the desire to feel like I was communing with this legacy of power and ability in the female body. I wanted a rite of passage experience that felt connected to ancient wisdom. And my brain loves to focus on and obsess about one single thing at a time. And when I was pregnant and preparing for a home birth, I was like an athlete preparing for the Olympics. So we hired a doula, and that's basically like a birth coach. And she also led our training in hypnobirthing. And the idea with hypnobirthing is that your body knows how to birth and will do it more efficiently and easily if you get your brain out of the way. So it's all about learning how to go into a deeply relaxed, meditative place so that you can allow your body to flow through the natural process of birth. So to prepare for this, which is mental preparation, I did daily guided meditations. I did a ton of visualization exercises where I would visualize in great detail exactly how I wanted the birth to go. And I read a ton of natural home birth stories, and I also protected myself from anyone and anything that presented a negative view of birth. So the time came, and it was an incredible experience. The best way that I can describe the experience is like a vision quest. And I had my spirit guides around me, which were the midwives, my doula, my husband, and they helped me on this quest that I was on. And there were highs and there were lows, and some parts were really hard, but it never felt impossible. So there I was holding my daughter in my arms for the first time, and I was feeling so powerful, like I was on top of the world, like I could do anything. In fact, not long after giving birth, I said, I'm ready to do that again. So for me, giving birth was an opportunity to actually feel transcendent and to meet my animal self and to witness the vivid, raw force of life flow and knit together. Now, had I mentally prepared to actually take care of a tiny newborn human? No, I had not. I thought that part would just kind of fall into place. And I found that I was completely overwhelmed by the task. For me, actually being a mother to a little baby was exponentially harder than giving birth. I had had my moment of triumph, and then I was brought to my knees. But the empowering birth experience that I had was a flame that continued to burn. Even as I struggled as a new mother, it imbued me with confidence. I knew that I could trust my body and the natural processes that were continuing to unfold in postpartum. I could trust my baby, and I could trust my instincts. So this personal transformation through the experience of birth and motherhood is what led to the transformation in my work over the last several years. Trusting the process, letting go, being attuned to something bigger than myself, patiently letting something slowly build over time. Okay. I'm ready for the next section, please.
It's been evening all day long.
Okay. So that is this painting right here, and I guess some of you might not be able to see it. I didn't put an image of it here. And I don't have an image of it in my slide presentation, so hopefully you can look at that painting while I'm talking about it. So the idea for this painting came during a pretty difficult time. I'm going to mention all kinds of difficult times during this talk, but this was during the pandemic, and we were living in Jersey City, and I really felt like I was like losing my mind for a variety of reasons. I was struggling to be joyful in motherhood, and the pressure to feel joyful and the guilt of not being joyful felt like a burden. So the initial idea was a woman who was saddled with a rainbow.
Grace, is it possible to put it on, like, from your website? Show it on the computer? Never mind.
I'll just wait. You guys can look at it after I talk.
Sorry.
So this rainbow symbolizes the expectation of happiness and hope, the expectations for your life to unfold like a perfect story, the happiness of your children and your role in that, the future of your children. And I grew up in a Southern household and was deeply socialized to always present to others a happy face, a cheerful outlook, a friendly smile. In fact, to this day, if you ask me how I'm doing, often, even if I'm having a hard time, the most negative thing I'm capable of saying to you is, oh, pretty good. So that's, but obviously there are more layers to me, and my husband, he's seen them all. So yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And I'm still working on this, like trying to be a little more genuine when someone asks me how I'm doing. It's hard to, grow out of those things that were ingrained in you. And also when I was younger, several times I had this experience of being out and about, and I was just like waiting on something or being lost in thought, just out. And an older man would walk by me and say, "Smile." Has anyone ever had this experience? Does this still happen? So yeah, that's all also wrapped up in this. So the idea of putting her hands in the water came as I was sketching the idea, working out the composition. So I see these waters as healing, restoration, wisdom, magic, energy, and the parts of the paintings that have this kind of flow, which have been a key part of my paintings recently, they are the most intuitive parts of the painting. So they are coming in a very unplanned way. And they're created with this sense of mystery and wonder. And they also visually operate as mystery and wonder in the paintings. Okay. Okay, that's a great segue. Okay, let's see. Oh, I don't think I gave a slide for this. Okay, so I'll just talk to you about it. Okay, so intuitive painting is painting without a plan. And it's very playful and also allows for a lot of discovery because the process is extremely open. And many things can be done intuitively and are. So when you're at a party and your song comes on and you start dancing, most of the time you're dancing in an intuitive way. You're grooving, you're vibing, you're not overthinking it. You might even fill a dishwasher in an intuitive way. But you can also be mindful about approaching a task in an intuitive way. You can be intentional about letting go of any kind of plan and decide to follow your instincts or impulses. So many artists, musicians, writers, dancers, quilters have worked this way and continue to do so because there is value in the mystery. It can feel like you're tapping directly into something hidden inside you. You never know what you might turn up as you start digging. So I started experimenting with intuitive painting about a year after my daughter Marigold was born. At first, I used it as a tool for coping with stress, but soon started to incorporate it into my work in a serious way. And this coincided with a move away from realistic figures, which had been a big part of my work until then. And these shifts happened in my work for two reasons. One, I really needed painting to be more fun for me. And two, I needed to figure out a way to make paintings in a more efficient way because I had less time. And I succeeded on the first point. I'm having so much fun making my paintings now, but I am still trying to figure out how to make the kind of paintings that I want to make in a less time-consuming way. So, yeah. So these two shifts perfectly aligned with a technique that I had already been experimenting with, which was building up areas of the painting with small marks in a variety of colors so that they became this like vibration of color and energy. And this all was a natural transformation in my work that happened over several years and felt like a real epiphany, like things were finally starting to make sense. Okay. Okay, that's this painting. So these ideas came to me at the same difficult time, but this one got put on hold because of a baby, a move and then a baby. So got put on the back burner. But I do have some slides to show you for this. Okay. So the initial idea was for this woman to be stuck in a pillory, which is like this humiliation/torture device. These people are enjoying themselves at Colonial Williamsburg. So I had this idea that I wanted her to be stuck in a pillory, but it was going to be a cosmic pillory, and it was going to have all these shimmering bits of color and light. So that was the original idea, and it was tabled. So fast forward like a year or so, and then we were in Fort Myers, and I had a baby, and the floors in our house in Fort Myers were pink terrazzo. And we had those refinished, so they were kind of the best part of our house, and we liked to look at them. I did. And I found myself looking at these floors a lot and studying the different colors of the stones used, the subtle variations of shape and size, and finding little surprises here and there. Terrazzo can be really visually captivating in that way. So another difficult time for me when I returned to work when Cosmo, my second child, was 5 months old. I was really, really struggling. And I was looking at these floors get dirty, and it all felt so hopeless because I was too tired to do anything about it. We were so busy, and I couldn't keep up with all the things. So the idea for this painting returned to me, but this time the terrazzo felt like such a natural replacement for the cosmic color sparkle of my original idea. I also liked the disorienting contradiction of like a pillory, which is like this upright thing, getting flipped to a floor. So there's kind of that shift back and forth. And I also wanted the mess to be beautiful. And I really enjoyed painting that Cheez-It bag and the roach. And they became kind of jewel-like in that process. And it was kind of cathartic to appreciate their beauty while I was painting this. And I should just mention that we Floridians prefer to call these large roaches palmetto bugs because it makes us feel better. And I also wanted to show you guys, like, at some point this figure turned blue, and then she kind of turned purple. But it dawned on me when I was doing the shift to blue, like, oh my gosh, xenon, which is this pinball machine from my childhood. My grandparents had this pinball machine, and you would turn it on, and it would go xenon. And then a weird part about this pinball machine that we played as children, like, all the time, is every time the ball hit something, she would make this sexual moan. And I thought as a kid, like, oh, just a weird sound, you know? So anyway, but like, I don't know, I just really felt like, oh my gosh, is like all of this just about xenon? So just wanted to show you guys that. Okay, I'm ready for the next section. Who's got the bucket? Okay. Fig trees, okay. This is really the glue here for all of this. Okay. Okay, so I read The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath when I was 22, living by myself for the first time ever in New Orleans, which is where I moved when I graduated from college. I loved the book, and it deeply impacted me as a young woman looking toward my future. And though I was not struggling with mental illness like the main character, there were so many parts of this book that felt very relatable to me. So this part of the book that I'm about to share with you is very popular, and you've probably already heard it. But as soon as I read it, it just impacted me so much and has kind of remained in me, like deep in my bones since I read it. So I'm going to read it to you. I saw my life branching out before me like a green fig tree in the story. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. One fig was a husband and a happy home and children, and another fig was a famous poet, and another fig was a brilliant professor, and another fig was E.G., the amazing editor, and another fig was Europe and Africa and South America, and another fig was Constantine and Socrates and Attila, and a pack of other lovers with queer names and offbeat professions. And another fig was an Olympic lady crew champion. And beyond and above these figs were many more figs I couldn't quite make out. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest. And as I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black, and one by one, they plopped to the ground at my feet. So in Fort Myers, where we lived for 3 years before we moved here, there are a lot of banyan trees. And they were actually first brought to Fort Myers from India by Thomas Edison, who had a winter estate and a research lab there. And you can actually go see his home still. So he was looking for an alternate domestic source for rubber. And the banyan tree did not pan out for this because it grows so slowly. But it remained and grew, and this particular tree that you're looking at here is the one he first planted. Now over a century old, and is the largest banyan tree in the continental United States. So a banyan tree is a type of fig tree, and I didn't know that until I moved to Fort Myers and started being around banyan trees. And another thing I didn't know about the banyan tree until last summer is that it is categorized as a strangler fig. So here's my daughter hanging out with a banyan tree. And here is an example of kind of what the strangler fig looks like. So we were walking around last summer at a botanical garden, and I saw this little sign next to a banyan that was doing this, and it said strangler fig, and I was like, whoa. Because suddenly I was presented with this new fig tree metaphor, and it felt much more aligned with my current season of life. And it was really like a punch to the gut. So a strangler fig grows on a host tree, climbing its way towards the sun, and eventually envelops the host tree completely. Sometimes this can cause the host tree to die, but it is also believed that the strangler fig can help its host tree survive storms. So, looking back to when I was younger, I remember looking at all of those figs, all the paths that I could take and wondering which one I would choose, and also which ones I would be able to achieve, because like all of that is a mystery when you're young. But I did know that I didn't have to choose just one. And the times had really changed for women since the setting of that book, which was in 1953. It was written like 10 years later. So now, as an almost 40-year-old woman, so many of those questions that I had about like what path I would take have been answered. I ate all the figs that I wanted to eat. And there might even be more figs that I want to eat. I don't consider myself past the fig eating time. But I got what I wanted. What I had been dreaming of. I have a beautiful family. I'm an artist. I'm a professor. All of those things I dreamed about and hoped for, and I got them. So back to the strangler fig. The strangler fig idea for me isn't that I ate all the figs I wanted to eat and I feel unsatisfied, or like I've finally have what I wanted, but it turns out I want something else. Not at all. Like, this is not about a midlife crisis or an identity crisis. It really feels incredible to have those dreams of mine come true and to look back to my 20-year-old self and say, we did it, you know? I'm more content than I've ever been at any other time in my life. And I feel so grateful to be living the life that I chose for myself and that I worked for. So Strangler Fig is this. I have it all, I have what I wanted, and I'm completely overwhelmed. I'm finding it impossible to actually maintain having it all. So if one aspect of my life is going well, the others are neglected. I'm juggling the balls, and I'm often dropping the balls, like all the time. I'm a terrible clown. And I do want to point out, just for some context, that this very particular moment that I'm in is especially time-consuming. I have little kids, and I know that's not all of parenting. That's like not what it's always going to be like. Also, I just moved, and I just started a new job. I'm preparing for a show. Like, it's like especially crazy. But I also know that like next year, this time, I'm also going to be feeling the Strangler Fig. And I know that there are other people in this room who know what I'm talking about when I say Strangler Fig. So it turns out that there are prices to pay for eating figs. And for example, I left the place where I was raised. I had no desire to return to live there again, to be the person I wanted to be, to have the job that I wanted. All of that necessitated living elsewhere. But the price for that choice is that Davy and I have never had any kind of support system, like extended family, to help raise our kids. A safety net or free babysitting are just not there for us. So we have really felt that. It's like been difficult. The fig of being an artist, but also being a mother, like those two figs really clash in a lot of ways too, because having children, that means I have significantly less time and focus for painting. And there have been really large chunks of time where no painting happened at all. So despite all of this, these are prices I was willing to pay and would gladly pay again if given the choice. The solution to this strangler fig conundrum isn't eat less figs. Women are now in the workplace, and that is a huge societal improvement, and everyone benefits from that. But I think we can all agree that we haven't, as a society, figured out a way to reorient ourselves and the way we do things so that we can actually support working mothers, so that it all feels sustainable. And I'm not going to get into any kind of research here, but there's a lot of reading out there, if you're interested in this, regarding what working women today are juggling in terms of domestic labor and child rearing and even like mental load of running a household and that kind of thing. This is a problem that we need to solve as a society. So how do we move beyond the grip of the strangler fig? Or better yet, how do we flourish within the grip of the strangler fig? I think the answer is to look toward community. How can we know each other better and help each other collectively? My band director in high school used to say, "Many hands make light work." And I think that is very fitting here. So another way that I'm coping personally is just trying to be more present, accepting the imperfection and the chaos and choosing joy anyway. Obviously, I have not mastered this. I'm trying, and then I'm failing, and then I'm trying again. But being present is something that I have to actively work on, and it's hard, especially when I'm really busy. I think you all know what I'm talking about. But my best teachers for being present are my children and painting. Okay, I'm ready for the next one. Alien invasion. Okay. All right. I'm going to wait to show you this picture in a second. Okay, so one time when we were living in Fort Myers, we were driving up to see my parents who live in North Central Florida. And we had successfully left the house early. It was like 5:30. We were probably like 15 minutes into our drive. It was still kind of dark. And I was really just kind of chilling in the passenger seat and I was so happy. Like, the baby was asleep. Marigold was content. And then Marigold says, Mama, look out the window. What is that? And I looked, and I did not know what I was seeing. And it looked something like this. So I was like, oh, it was this green kind of bubbling, boiling, expanding mass of light. And it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger in the sky. And then this little tiny bit of light fell out of it and was slowly falling toward the earth. And I, inside, was like, oh my God, this is it. Like, the aliens are here. This is the beginning of the end. And my daughter was all of this was like happening inside me, and my heart was pounding. And I was for real feeling all of this. And my daughter was like, I'm scared. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. I'm sure there's like an explanation for it. It's like, I'm sure it's something. And inside I was freaking out. So this was like, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds of panic, but it was very intense. And then I looked toward the internet, and I found that it was actually a SpaceX launch. And in Florida, you do see a lot of this. But that one in particular, because of the time of day and what the light was doing with the sunrise, like it got extra weird. And so it was like, it was just kind of crazy. And then I felt like very comforted by the fact that it was just SpaceX. But looking back on that experience, I really surprised myself by how quickly, when confronted with the inexplicable, my mind just accepted a supernatural or extraterrestrial explanation. I'm not sure what this says about me as a person, but whatever it is, I think it does come out in my paintings, which often mix the mundane with the mystical. My interest in magic and the supernatural is rooted in my Southern Baptist upbringing and devout Christian faith as a young person. Even though I no longer believe in Christian dogma, I still find myself peering at mystery and arriving at mysticism and metaphysics. And I'm drawn to biblical themes because these ancient texts are a means of grappling with the world's wonder, with the strangeness of being alive. I believe that myth or fantasy can sometimes be the truest way to tell the tale. Elements of the surreal may sometimes be required to depict the full texture of reality. So when making a painting, a goal of mine is to visually delight myself. This is a guiding light in my work, and I feel like when everything is keyed up to a particular saturation point of color and intricacy, the viewer may find themselves tapped into a sense of wonder. And wonder for me is an important counterpoint to some of my darker themes in my work. And I always hope to depict a sense of wonder simultaneously with suffering or sacrifice or drudgery, because this feels closest to my own lived experience. Okay, I'm ready for the next one. Okay, how many are left in there? The last one, that's what I thought, okay. So there was a time when we were living in Fort Myers, and I was really struggling, and I was starting to see a therapist. And one day, my therapist and I got on the subject of the kind of mother that I wanted to be. And I talked about how when I was growing up, there were so many constraints on who I could be, how I could dress, what I could be interested in, where I could go. Every morning when I went to school, my mom would say, "Do good, be good. Remember who you are and whose you are." And she did tell me that every morning. There was a great emphasis on reputation, upholding my own and that of my family. And anything unconventional was weird or hippie and discouraged. In addition to this, I was raised, like I've mentioned earlier, I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church, so that had its own obvious limitations for what was okay and not okay for me to think and feel and say and do. And I devoted myself to my Christian faith wholeheartedly. And looking back, obvious to me that this was a form of radical self-expression that was available to me. But I was a curious person, and I was independent, and I wanted to see more of the world. Long story short, I lost my faith in college, and after college I moved to New Orleans, and for the first time in my life, I really felt free to actually discover who I was. And if there is a place where you can really let loose and no one will care, is New Orleans. So all of this was really positive for me, but I couldn't help but look back and think of the time of self-discovery that was lost to me all that time. What does it feel like to be free to be whoever you are from the moment you're born? For years, my family acted as though my 18-year-old self was my true self, and that what came after was a phase influenced by the outside world. And I think now they've finally accepted that this is who I am. So I explained all of this to my therapist because what is most important to me as a mother is for my children to grow up feeling free, feeling accepted and supported with every identity that they try on, whatever clothes they want to experiment with, whatever interests they want to pursue. I want them to know that it's normal for people to change and grow and blossom over time, and I won't expect them to remain who they were. My hope is to be a happy and diligent gardener. I will tend and nurture. I will make sure they have what they need, and I will watch them unfold into themselves. So it was at this point that my therapist made a really valuable connection for me. She said, "It sounds like the way you make paintings and the way you mother are very similar." And by making this connection, she really helped me to merge these two parts of my life together mentally in a really meaningful way. I had been in anguish about how I was either a great painter or a great mother, but when one of those things was going well, I was like failing miserably at the other one. And she showed me that it's all the same stuff, and it's all coming from the same place. So that was kind of something that for whatever reason, I couldn't see myself, and she really helped me to see that. And it has helped me to make all of these connections in my work and continue to do that. And that's all I have to say. Oh, but I will say one more thing about this picture. So this is the armature for those boob sculptures that I showed you earlier. And I just thought it was really cute how they were playing inside them. So yeah. Okay, so what time is it? I don't have a sense. 1:13. Okay. What do you... So I don't know if we have any time for questions a little bit. Okay, so if anybody has a question, I can answer a couple. Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting what you're talking about with the fig tree and how, you make the choice to eat one and that kills the other one. And I don't know, I'm gonna quote here. I think it was Anne Bogart who said it, and I think she was speaking, specifically in relation to performance art, but she said something like, making a choice is violent because it kills all the other choices. And you were talking to speaking about intuitive painting and how that's become a new process for you. And something I'm an amateur painter myself, I would say. And something I think about a lot with that is once I make a mark, that it's done and that it's on the page. And so how do you kind of rectify that with intuitive painting?
Yeah,
Or
well,
go of that?
that's such a great question because my experience with intuitive painting isn't that a choice kills all the others, but that it leads to all the other choices. So you make one and then it's very generative. And what I love about the process is that I don't feel like I can mess up. I really feel like in the moment when I'm like picking a color, and I used to agonize about color and getting it right, and I would redo things over and over again. But now I just give myself a few seconds, or sometimes like I'll go to like a minute to think about what color that I want to go with for something. But I just try to follow my initial gut reaction, and then I go with it. And then if that turns out that it wasn't quite right, I just know that I'm gonna put more in there and that it's all gonna kind of come together. Like I know that it's gonna come together. And part of that knowing is also experience, which is kind of can really go hand in hand with an intuitive way of working, because you have like this deep reservoir to tap into. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in All Day It's Been Evening, if that's the right name, or is it get it flipped around?
It's been evening all
It's
day
Been
long.
Evening All Day. And in A Time to Sweep, right, there's the flowing hair, and
Mm-hmm.
and you sort of spoke about flow and joy and that connection. And in the Time Flies, there's the red banner that's beautiful to look at and really kind of reminiscent of the martyr paintings with the
Mm-hmm.
way, right, flowing banners are really central sort of images to, in at least crucifixion
Yes.
paintings from the
Yeah.
Renaissance. And I was wondering, was it just giving over to the sort of pleasure of the visual pleasure of painting that billowing red cloth, or was something else going on in terms of visually calling up
Yeah.
some of that Renaissance
Well,
imagery?
it's interesting that you bring that painting up because it is kind of like the in between. And it was one that I began completely intuitively. And through that process, I realized, like, okay, I cannot make work that's completely intuitive because it just isn't quite meshing with these, like, particular images that I want to create. And so it started out as completely intuitive, like, very free flowing, kind of like, kind of nonsense. And then I just decided, I had this epiphany, like, oh, this isn't the way I want to work. And then I decided to kind of close it in, rein it in, and make it something. So it's kind of this weird mix. And the ribbon evolved in that, but it's not like I have had so many more epiphanies about how I want all of this to kind of come together that really came together in like these, and that one was kind of, it wasn't all there yet. Yeah. But I do really love painting flowing ribbons. It's so fun to paint. Yeah. Larry?
I might have phrased this exactly right, so just bear with me for a second. But when you are sort of thinking about maybe exploring a different theme, do you ever experience any guilt on moving away from an older theme? Like maybe you haven't done as much as you want with it. You feel like I owe this theme a little bit more of my attention before I start to move in another direction, or do you not experience that?
I keep a list of all my ideas, and then the thing is, my production level is so slow. Because especially now, I'm really hoping this is gonna change when my kids get a little older. But I really feel, well, also I'll say that my themes have been so similar, so much about female experience since I like really started making my serious work like in grad school, but even in undergrad. So it's all kind of the same stuff. I have paintings that are heavily influenced by Saint Agatha that I made long before I had any kids, and there are these like references to motherhood, like what is it gonna be like before I became a mother. So it's all kind of mixed together, and I do go through the idea list that I have, and sometimes go and hit up some older things if I feel like it feels right. And often it's just like so much, it's coming from the same well. So I haven't yet reached a point where I'm like, oh, I really want to change things up and like go in a thematically different direction. That hasn't happened to me. I'm not saying it won't. Who knows what's going to happen? But so far, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was really struck by the way that you described the straggler fig, in particular, like the idea that it envelops the tree and kind of takes it over and also, makes it stronger in storms. And I was thinking, and this might be very specific to my experience with my kids, but my oldest child is this kid who is constantly on top of me. Even if I ask her to like move to the side or stop digging her elbows into my legs while I read her books, she just instinctively and I didn't understand the concept of being hushed out until this kid who is kind of a strangler pig, like she
Mhm.
is kind of, but at the same time, like I had, and you at Marigold, the same thing, like I had this kid during a pandemic who like wasn't born in the pandemic, but was little in the pandemic,
Mhm.
and was in some ways, and still remains in these complicated moments, like this, I like to call her a joy monster or a joy machine. Like she just provides this thing that allows me to weather storms in ways that I didn't know before I had kids, right? That like, even like she took her first steps in pandemic lockdown, which was going to be a thing I was going to miss because I had travel scheduled and had I done all these other things that were part of my previous identity, that like being her mother then gave me this thing that could weather. And so I was curious if there's any part of that too, of the like, on the one hand, when you have kids, they kind of strangle out a little bit of who you were. I mean, they completely extinguish who you were before you had them. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you don't grow into something new, but like that person who you are before you have kids is gone. That's a lot of the grieving of having kids in the first place. And so I was curious, like, how do you think about that as, do you think about that as another metaphor for motherhood, or if that's been part of your experience of like this thing that does take up all of you also creates something entirely new or helps you to weather things or gives you perspective in that time kind of thing.
Yes, 100%. Like I like what you were saying about Penelope helping you get through the pandemic. Like, yeah, I mean, I think even when disaster is happening, kids are just like doing their thing, and they're just playing, and I think we have so much to learn from that. And also, despite all of the struggles that I've described, my kids are like the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm so excited to just like that. It's a journey that keeps on unfolding and giving, and I really like newness. So that part of kids, like it's always just change. Like I love that. So yeah, there is the strangling and the restoration all bundled together. Yeah.
We should probably call
Yeah.
it